So yeah, diversifying your skill base, your technology skills, and then just how to communicate, ways to be better at communication, no matter what stage of life that you're in, what kind of industry that you work in is always something that can be valuable. Hi, everyone. The Prairie Fire Podcast. A prairie fire burns away the old and makes room. That's what we're trying to do here, to bring in fresh ideas, fresh thoughts, and give you a good footing for whatever the second half of life might hold for you. So today we're going to discuss something called pitfalls. I don't know about you, but I hate scary movies. I've always hated them. First time I saw Friday the 13th, when that little Jason came flying out of the water and grabbed that woman and drug her out of the boat, I was scared of camp. I was scared of water. I was scared of boats. I was scared of little men coming out of the water for the rest of my days, and had to spend a lot of nights sleeping on my dad's floor after that. So anyway, scary things aren't my favorite. As we're looking into the new year, I thought it would be good to look at 3 potential pitfalls that we might run into this year and how to avoid those. So the first one I want to talk about is diversification. And I'm not just going to be talking about investment diversification. It's also diversifying who we are and our skill sets and the things that we are wanting to grow into in the future. The other thing is about inflation, the pitfall of inflation, and how we can help protect ourselves a little bit there. And then the third is cyber and the ongoing threats that are coming from the cyber world and how we can also freshen up our skill set there. All right, so a lot of us, a pitfall that we have is that we avoid diversification. And so you hear about this a lot in the investment world, where we should buy a stock, but we should also buy a bond to diversify. We shouldn't put all of our eggs in one basket. We should buy large companies and small companies when we're investing. We should invest outside of the United States. We should add things like gold to our portfolios. So we've all heard this. We've all heard this theme of diversification over the year and how it's supposed to, and it generally does, level out our returns over time and is a good thing. But one of the areas I wanted to focus on is skill diversification. And so there was a book written a few years ago, many years ago, by a gentleman named Harvey McKay. And he talked a lot about this concept of what else can we be working on to diversify our skill set, make us more valuable in the marketplace. And so right now we're living in what I call the era of the masterclass. There's virtually nothing that you might want to learn about, from playing a guitar to learning how to better use Microsoft Office to anything that you can imagine out there, where you can take a class for $100 and learn a ton of new skills. And so I would challenge everyone in the new year to diversify your skill set in some way. Maybe there's something that you've always wanted to do, like learn a foreign language. Or maybe there's something that you know you can do for your work, that if you had a better skill set around that, you might be more promotable, look better for whatever that next opportunity that it is. Or maybe you've had this side gig going on for you. You know you could turn into a business. Maybe this is the year to get those business skills and learn more about how cash flow works and what do I need to do when I'm starting up a business legally, tax planning, all of that kind of thing. So whatever it is for you, finding the way that you can diversify that skill set and that skill base is more and more important. So this program that I used to develop to produce my podcast, I took a master class on that. He taught how to use these different framing skills inside of this program, adding text and images and all this stuff that, as a financial advisor, I didn't know anything about. But I learned a lot, not just from the teacher, but the group then that was built in Facebook from the other people, and we shared ideas and those kind of things. So it can be fun. It can be a good way to meet new people and also develop a skill set that where I can really do something here on my own, make it feel a lot more valuable and personal. And so the other thing, as far as diversifying, is also then finding ways to build more relationships. And so when Harvey McKay wrote that book, Swim with the Sharks, he had an envelope company. And so when he wrote a book, no publisher wanted, like, you're an envelope salesman. I don't know why anybody's going to read your book. Well, he had connections all over the U.S. economy from selling envelopes all those years, and he'd fostered those relationships over time. And so when it was time for him to get his book published, he said, well, I know some folks at General Motors, and I know some folks over here that I've done business with. And so he was able to basically convince that publisher, I can get this book out there just because of all the relationships I've built. Well, in a lot of ways, building relationships is tougher than it used to be. After COVID, we don't do a lot of networking events. That whole dynamic has shifted. While it's definitely picking up more, there's less of that. But there are new tools like LinkedIn that will allow you to build some extra relationships and get to know other people. But it does take taking that first step. I know a lot of LinkedIn can be kind of salesy and spammy, but I think it's getting better. And I also think it's a great way if there's somebody that you're interested in what they do and how they do it, or if they're publishing articles, you can follow them and comment. Lots of ways that you can interact on social media to build relationships. You just never know what can come from that, and how, if you're a giver on social media and you're a giver in the LinkedIn space, for instance, where that might create an opportunity for you down the road. There's just no way of knowing, but over time that tends to work. The other area of diversification to be thinking about is avoiding what I call an automation retirement, where basically the economy automates around you in a way that it doesn't make your skill set valuable anymore. And so we're all hearing about artificial intelligence and how that's changing the way that we write. I use it frequently to generate ideas, to build out concepts. It's really just like Google on steroids at this point. However, that's going to become more and more pervasive and be used in more and more positions. So how can you use AI to make yourself more valuable, or your ideas more valuable? There is no replacement for you. So how can you then use that artificial intelligence to better communicate your ideas or come up with new ideas, or make your job just a little bit easier so you're actually more productive, maybe spend more time being proactive? So we really have to kind of innovate or die in this. I remember back early in my career when I was a banker and the ATM machine was coming around, and they were big and bulky and expensive. And the bank presidents that I worked with were always poo-pooing the idea, saying no one's going to use this, no one's going to trust it. They're definitely not going to pay a fee to get their own money. And as we know, that's not how it works. We pay our bank a fee and their bank a fee when we use somebody else's ATM. So they found a way to crack that code. Of course, that went on then to the internet, where that was not going to make any big changes. And now we can't even imagine our daily lives without it. And so AI is probably the next thing that will be something that we all have to embrace. But that automate and innovate or die is another way that we have to add diversification to our life. And then whether we like it or not, we're all in sales. Whether you're a parent trying to convince your kid of something, or you are communicating an idea through something that you've written. We recently spoke to the graduating class at DMU that these are physical therapy students. So they're about to graduate and get out into the real world. And I explained to all of them that whether they like it or not, whether they believe me or not, they're going to be in sales. And so convincing, if somebody has a bad wrist and they're trying to get them to do home exercises and ways to make their wrist stronger or more flexible, they're going to have to convince that person that this is a good idea. If they're not able to do that, they're not going to be productive as a physical therapist, and that's sales. So these communication skills are just vital. And so I enforce this with my children all the time, that if you're going to take more classes, do it in communications, ways to learn to communicate your ideas. You can always find a way to be valuable in the marketplace if you're diversifying that communication set, the ways that you communicate, and working on getting better and better at it. So yeah, diversifying your skill base, your technology skills, and then just how to communicate, ways to be better at communication, no matter what stage of life that you're in, what kind of industry that you work in, is always something that can be valuable. All right. So we're all vulnerable to inflation. We haven't had to deal with inflation for a long time, where prices are going up. And so when prices rise, the power of your spending dollar diminishes. Oh, well, thank you, Captain Obvious. I didn't realize that now all of a sudden I've got to pay more for stuff, and that my dollar doesn't go as far. Nowhere have we seen this more painfully probably than at the grocery store, but certainly with rents and house payments and interest rates going up like they have, and everything is costing more, having to pay more to hire employees if you're a business owner. It affects us all. And so we've all been vulnerable to it because we haven't had to deal with it for so long. So a lot of us didn't know really what to do. And so one thing is that we're beginning to see it moderate a little bit. And inflation is very personal. So you need to take kind of an inflation audit to figure out, where is inflation impacting me and what can I do about it? So if the grocery store is a big spot, then finding deals, buying in bulk, and being a smart consumer, not spending a lot of money at the quick shops. All of these kind of things can help save dollars that will make your dollar go a lot further and able to get more out of what feels like a diminishing dollar and a diminishing amount of money that you have to spend every month. And so we're also seeing that inflation can benefit us in areas like investments and in real estate, where our prices are going up, and that's impacting our values in a good way. And so making sure that we're staying invested, or that we're being wise with our real estate investments and allowing those to be as productive as they possibly can for us, or getting them ready for when we might want to sell them down the road, making some improvements and doing some of those things that will help keep the price going up with both our investments and our real estate along with the economy. And then we're beginning to see a trend in the investment world that we haven't seen in a very long time, where international companies are beginning to perform better than United States companies. This chart demonstrates in the purple is when developed markets outside of the United States have outperformed. And then the gray is when the U.S. has outperformed. Well, you can see basically back to the '08 mess, the over 14 years here, the U.S. has outperformed. Well, just in the last year or so, that's begun to shift a little bit. And so this is a trend that can continue for a while. So diversifying your investments outside of the United States might be a good way to protect from inflation. Inflation is certainly global, but there's so many dollars floating around that it has created that dollar value to go down a little bit. And when that happens, it does benefit those companies that have a different currency base. And so just something to think about there. And the other I would say is that we're beginning to see everybody that basically wants a job can get one. As of October, there's 8.7 million jobs open. So when that's the case, wages should keep going up. So sticking with your employer, especially if you're seeing your wages increase to keep up with inflation, would be a good thing. Or if you want to look around, there's an opportunity in the marketplace now where wages are going up and things are getting more and more competitive. A lot of my adult children are in the workplace and are seeing proactive raises coming from their companies because there's so much competition in the marketplace. So this won't last forever. This is definitely a trend that we'll be interested to see how it plays out. But while you can negotiate wages and hopefully get your wage base up, this is a good time to do that. Okay, and the third and final pitfall that we want to talk about today is in the cyber world, and hopefully not being a cyber sucker. The days of getting the blatant emails about money transferred to Nigeria are long gone. Scammers have never become more sophisticated. They're using these tools of AI against us. They can replicate voices. They can duplicate tone in the way that you email. They can make it seem like you've paid a bill that you don't know anything about and then sucker you into sending money over to cover said bill. They are using all kinds of new creative techniques, especially through email and phishing attempts, to separate us from our money. They're thieves. And so how we can protect ourselves here is a way that we can always make ourselves feel a lot safer, but also protect our financial affairs as well. And so whenever you see an update on your phone or a software update from a provider that you use, it's important to go through that process. Many of those updates include security updates, so they're important. A big area that's still a lot of vulnerabilities is in passwords. So keeping your passwords up to date. I use Password Keeper on my phone, and I keep all my passwords in here. It's not in a spreadsheet on my desk. It's somewhere secure that has to have a Face ID for me to access, and I change them frequently. And so using the strong password keys that they'll give you, all of those kind of tools are super helpful, and definitely something that, even though it's a hassle, are important, because once that password gets leaked through a hack or whatever, they can wreak a lot of change and a lot of havoc in your financial life. Educating ourselves on new threats. So a new one that I've learned about is juice jacking, where basically you plug your phone in to be powered up at an airport, and through those USB ports, somehow they're able to get malware into your phone. Then they can ransomware you out or screw up your phone or whatever. I use these power packs that you can get that have the USB ports and things that you can charge these up and then use them portably. So when I'm traveling in particular, or going somewhere where I will be in a hotel or an airport or wherever, where I can charge my own phone without having to use their stuff and run the threat of that. These public areas is where there's more and more challenge. And then just doing a quick vulnerability audit, asking yourself, where am I vulnerable right now? If someone could get to my bank accounts, what would I do? And what's the last time I've updated all my passwords on my financial accounts in particular? What about my email? Have I checked my sent items every now and then, like your Gmail and your Outlook accounts, to make sure emails aren't going out that you didn't send? So just being cyber aware. Cyber sucker is kind of a harsh word for this, but being cyber aware as we move through the new year is a great way to avoid that pitfall. All right. So I know I've been incredibly frightening today, but really just wanted to help give you some proactive steps to be thinking about where areas that there might be some vulnerabilities or some pitfalls that we can avoid. So whether it's being cyber smart, diversifying our skill base here, and also protecting ourselves from the challenges of inflation, hopefully these three pitfalls can be avoided for you this year, and it can be a super year. All right, we'll include some extra tools in the show notes. You can always reach us at www.pfwplanning.com. And if you sign up for our email, we can also get you a free copy of my book, Other Side, Empty Nest Full Pockets. So thank you all for tuning in today. We'll see you soon.